This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
At least 18 Nigerian villagers killed by suspected Islamist militants. South Africa's former president Jacob Zuma hands himself to police to begin serving his jail term. And the UN urges the Democratic Republic of Congo to secure peace before the 2023 polls. Hello and welcome. You're watching Africa Live. We're coming to you live from Nairobi. I'm Hannah Viviers. Here are more stories making headlines this hour. In business, Nigeria to build a $1.2 billion railway that will link Kano and Kaduna. And in your sport, Kenyan sprinter Ferdinand Omanyala out to make his name at the Tokyo Olympics in Japan. We begin the hour in Nigeria, where about 18 people in Dabna village have been killed by suspected Islamist militants. The attack took place in the country's northeast on Wednesday. In that assault, 2 churches and a house were also set on fire. It is not yet clear who is responsible for the incident. Attacks by Islamist militants have been intensifying in northeast Nigeria, with dozens of soldiers killed and thousands of Nigerians displaced from their homes. For the latest on that story and for more details, CGTN's Deji Badmus joined us now from Lagos. Hi, Deji. Some terrible news yet again from Nigeria's northeast region. What is the latest on the most recent attack, Deji?
Well, Hannah, that attack, of course, happened in a Hong local government area in Adamawa State. Adamawa State is in the northeast of the country and is one area that has not witnessed the number of attacks we have seen in places like Borno State. But this attack happened, of course, at a village known as Dabna. And, well, from what we have gathered, the insurgents now stormed the village on motorcycles and opened fire, killing several villagers. Some actually scampered for safety. At the end of the day, the military scrambled a fighter jet to the area to engage the insurgents, but unfortunately, that number of casualties has been given. It's not been officially confirmed yet by the government, and the military has not said anything. But what we have gathered now is that a reinforcement of the military has been sent to that local government area, to that place in particular, because it's very close to a village known as Garka. Garka is actually where a top government official comes from. That's the secretary to the government of the Federation. So, of course, as you know, no one has claimed responsibility for this attack.
DG, Nigeria has been experiencing a sharp rise in such attacks, and just as you've mentioned now, Dabna village hasn't been known to have attacks such as this, and so this is quite new to that village. Why is this the case about this rise in violence there, and what are the communities who are going through this insecurity saying?
Well, there are several reasons for this rise in attacks. Essentially, it's because, obviously, the military is not able to dominate the entire area. But let's not also forget that recently, a group of Boko Haram fighters actually joined forces now with ISWAP, pledging allegiance to ISIS. And the leader of ISWAP made it very clear that they were going to intensify their attacks now on they were going to intensify the attacks now on communities and villages, and I think that is what we are seeing from this attack. Even though no group has claimed responsibility, security experts say it has it has the modus operandi of ISWAP now. That's the Islamic State West African province, because they burned churches. 2 churches were actually burned down in that community. So there's a possibility ISWAP carried out this attack and is trying to make a statement that it's renewing its attack, not just renewing, but also intensifying it. It's a pity. The people of the Northeast have not been finding things easy at all. The government is doing everything it can to resettle them back to their various communities. But then with these attacks happening, of course, it's difficult to see how that resettlement program will work. It's indeed a challenge. I mean, people have not been able to farm. These people are farmers. They've not been able to farm for years now, and it's affecting the entire country. So it's a tough one, and unfortunately, they've not just lost their livelihood now. They've lost people, and unfortunately, this continues to happen. And the country's military has just not been able to put an end to this.
Oh, Deji, thank you so much for all that, and thank you for keeping us updated with the latest. Deji Badmo speaking to us from Lagos. Well, let's head over to South Africa now, where the ruling ANC party has called for calm and the respect of law among its members in what it describes as a difficult period. The party has urged its members to respect the decision taken by former President Jacob Zuma to abide by the rulings of the Constitutional Court. Zuma handed himself over to the police in his home province of KwaZulu-Natal on Thursday. He's now serving his 15-month jail sentence for contempt of court. Nogutula Chabalala has more.
After an intense standoff in Nkandla between the police and defiant supporters, former President Jacob Zuma was finally taken to the Escort Correctional Center in KwaZulu-Natal in the early hours of Thursday morning. The police had warned that they were prepared to arrest him if he did not hand himself in by midnight.
He arrived just after 1 a.m. You will know that as a former president, he has a presidential protection unit. They brought him to us, but now we have to take over to ensure that he's incarcerated in a safe custody, and also we'll have to respond to his special needs if any have been identified.
Zuma failed multiple times to testify in a state corruption inquiry. The Zondo Commission is investigating wide-ranging allegations of the looting of state-owned businesses and government departments during Zuma's 9-year tenure between 2009 and 2018. The former statesman was handed his jail term by the Constitutional Court last week.
As a department, the mandate is very clear, is to make it a point that all those sent by the state to us are kept safe, and they must be rehabilitated until such time that they complete their sentences.
South Africa has never seen a former president jailed before. Zuma's sentencing sparked back and forth court applications to have the ruling overturned. Noktula Shabalala, CGTN.
Well, aside from that contempt of court sentence, former President Jacob Zuma still faces other legal challenges. CGTN's Robert Nagila now takes a look at some of the allegations leveled against the former president.
Zuma's troubles date back to a 1999 multi-billion-dollar arms deal. He was charged with corruption in 2005, but the charges were dropped in 2009, shortly before he was elected president. But 2 years after he was forced to step down as president by his party, the African National Congress, in 2018, he was charged with corruption over the arms deal. He faces 16 counts of racketeering, corruption, fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering.
You have followed the charges that have been put to you now from the indictment, am I correct?
In May this year, he pleaded not guilty in the case. But the arms deal is just one among several scandals that dogged the 79-year-old's presidency. In 2016, he was ordered by a court to repay public funds used in the upgrade of his private home in Nkandla.
I'm not scared.
On his part, the former president maintains he is a victim of a political conspiracy, but retains a loyal support base within the ruling party. But his legal troubles are far from over, and after serving his current sentence, he is expected to be back in court to answer to more charges of corruption. Robert Nagila, CGTN, Nairobi, Kenya.
Uganda has announced that it is constructing a vaccine factory in Matuga outside the capital Kampala. The $500 million vaccine plant will be run by local pharmaceutical company Day Group in partnership with the University of Illinois in the U.S. The facility is to be used to produce doses of COVID-19 vaccines. With the details, here is Isabel Nakiria.
Uganda will soon be able to manufacture its own vaccines. President Yoweri Museveni said the vaccine plant will be up and running in less than a year. Equipment will be shipped from the United States to facilitate the production of vaccines such as Pfizer's and Moderna's. The Ugandan leader says Africa has been too reliant on donations from developed nations.
This is sleeping. Africans sleep a lot. The problem here is people sleep. It's sleeping. It's not lack of anything because Africa has got everything.
President Museveni has recently been quoted as saying the country will soon develop its own superior COVID-19 vaccines. He has called the West selfish for failing to ensure vaccine equity. Uganda could be among the first African countries to start producing COVID-19 vaccines. It would join South Africa, that is setting up a COVID manufacturing hub and could produce vaccines in 12 months.
Great.
Attending the launch of the plant's construction, Kenya's Deputy President William Ruto said East African nations would support Uganda in the venture.
The language you are speaking of billions of dollars, we are domesticating it in our continent. It is new, but we have champions like you who are daring to walk the journey, to invest in this space and in the magnitude that we have witnessed.
Shipments of vaccines to African countries have been slow, allowing COVID-19 cases to spread. In Uganda, hospitals have been overwhelmed with the rising number of patients, leading to a shortage of oxygen and ICU beds. The National Planning Authority says the country should have done better to equip hospitals.
As planners, we should have done a better job. We should have had more oxygen. We should have had more ICUs. The president told us to have 42 beds. We never delivered them. We are still talking of bringing ambulances 1 year later.
Uganda has so far vaccinated just 0.1% of its population due to a limited supply of vaccines. The country has received slightly over 1 million doses through the Global Vaccine Sharing Facility COVAX. More vaccine donations are expected in the coming months from the US, Russia and Cuba. Uganda expects to stop importing doses once it begins producing doses locally. Isabel Nakiria, CGTN Kampala, Uganda.
Tunisia has announced that it will buy 3.5 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines directly from Johnson & Johnson. The announcement comes amid sharp criticism of the government for the slow pace of its vaccination campaign. So far, just over half of 1 million Tunisians have received the 2 doses of vaccines in Tunisia.
Authorities in Tunis have signed an agreement to acquire 3.5 million doses of the single-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine. The government has been criticized for its decision to heavily rely on COVID-19 vaccines from the Global Vaccine Sharing Initiative, COVAX.
As far as the COVAX initiative is concerned, Tunisia delivered its file to the concerned parties to get its vaccines. Unfortunately, this system of vaccine procurement is very slow. That's why we opted for direct purchase of COVID-19 vaccines.
Many experts believe that the COVID-19 task force and the scientific committee in Tunisia mishandled the pandemic crisis and the vaccine procurement process. As the number of deaths passed 15,000, the country's frontline doctors urged the government to vaccinate the entire population.
Getting vaccinated is necessary for all citizens. The vaccine origin and the laboratory are insignificant details. It's good as long as it's approved for use by the WHO. The government needs to step up the campaign.
The health department says intensive care beds occupancy rates in public hospitals have reached 91.8%. This rate has already reached 100% in 11 governorates. In addition, the occupancy rate of oxygen-supported beds in public hospitals is estimated at 80%. This rate reached 100% in the regions of Manuba, Ben Arous and Zaghwan.
I have tested negative. I'm lucky, but other people are testing positive. Many need to go to the hospital. The authorities need to provide vaccines as soon as possible.
Prime Minister Hisham Ashishi announced new emergency measures to stem the spread of the coronavirus. The government will acquire 1,000 oxygen concentrators and provide $100 million in additional and urgent funding to finance the public health sector. After successfully containing the virus in the first wave last year, Tunisia is grappling with a rise in infections and deaths. The government has imposed a lockdown in many regions since last week, but rejected a full national lockdown due to the economic and social crisis. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
The head of the UN mission in the Democratic Republic of the Congo has encouraged all institutions, political groups and civil society to work together to ensure the country has credible and independent elections in 2023. Bintu Keita was speaking to the UN Security Council via a video link on Wednesday. She said that there was still much work to be done to secure peace and security in the DRC before MONUSCO can responsibly withdraw its operations from the country.
MONUSCO and the United Nations country team are working closely with the government to develop the set of milestones and indicators that will structure the mission's transition plan. This is an opportunity for the United Nations to refine the parameters of its assistance to the government's peace and development priorities and to take the necessary measures to gradually downsize the mission under clear conditions. In this regard, in line with the joint strategy for the gradual withdrawal of MONUSCO, the mission ceased its activities in the Kasai region on the 30th of June.
I would like to assure this council the determination of the President to restore peace in the eastern part of our country, to allow us to march towards the rule of law based on effective administration that is capable of managing and defending our border, as well as asserting the authority of the state of the entirety of the country.
Zambia's founding president, Kenneth Kaunda, has been laid to rest at the country's presidential burial site. This comes after the High Court dismissed a challenge by one of his sons that this would be against his wishes. Kaunda had earlier challenged in court the government's plan to bury his father at Embassy Park, where other former heads of state are buried. Kaweche had argued that his father's last wish had been to be buried at his residence next to his wife, Betty, who had died more than 10 years ago. High Court Judge Wilfred Mume had, however, ruled that there was no clear arguable case made by the applicant for judicial review. Founding President Kaunda had ruled Zambia from the date of its independence in 1964 to 1991. He passed away on June the 17th at a military hospital in Zambia's capital, Lusaka. Chinese President Xi Jinping has sent condolences to Russia over Tuesday's plane crash in Kamchatka. Search teams have found the remains of 19 of the 28 people on board the plane that crashed in Russia's Far East. Only one has been identified so far. The AN-26 plane was flying from the capital of the Kamchatka Peninsula to a village in the region's north. The governor of Kamchatka has declared 3 days of mourning. An investigation is underway. Well, let's now take a short break and return. More news, including the UN says Nigerian teenage pregnancy victims are deprived of the right to education. And DR Congo hails Belgium's approval to return stolen artworks.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Adnan Shawishi, Tunis,
Syria,
Juba,
Johannesburg,
Ethiopia, Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Welcome back. You're watching Africa Live. Teenage pregnancies in Nigeria are on the rise, and it's leading to more girls not only losing access to education, but also facing unsafe abortions. The United Nations Population Fund says nearly 30% of Nigerian women give birth before the age of 18, while less than 3% of sexually active girls aged 15 to 19 use contraceptives. Our correspondent, Tessa Makende, reports.
12-year-old Hussein Bott, not her real name, is 6 months pregnant. The father of her baby, a man she identifies as Shagir, who she says abandoned her at the terminus market in Jos, not central Nigeria.
The man who got me pregnant told me he loved me when I first met him, but he ran away once he found out I was pregnant. I was left alone with no food or place to stay until I found an NGO that took me in.
Husseina was picked up by the Voice for the Girl Child Foundation, a non-governmental organization which has been helping her. But many other pregnant teenage girls haven't been so lucky. Many have had to abort such pregnancies, and several haven't survived it. This NGO is ensuring she goes through the pregnancy safely.
We have registered her for antenatal care, where she sees the doctor regularly for regular checkup to follow up. Of which the doctor says she cannot even carry the pregnancy to term to 9 months because of her age and her body size. So she won't be able to carry it to 9 months. So we are projecting that she's going to give birth in the next few months, which is like in 2 months' time, 7 months by the grace of God, where she will be helped through the cesarean section.
The United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, says the population of out-of-school children in Nigeria has risen from 10.5 million to 13.2 million, the highest in the world. 75% of those are girls, with teenage pregnancy as one of the causes. Child rights activists attribute the growing rate of teenage pregnancies in the country to poverty amid other factors.
You see a situation that a mother has in her care 6 to 8 children, and maybe her health issue is at stake. Some of the causes of these teenage pregnancies are lack of parental guidance, abject poverty, and peer pressure. Like in the community we find ourselves, some of these issues link up to actually poverty.
The United Nations Population Fund advocates comprehensive sex education and sexual and reproductive health care to help girls avoid pregnancy. This NGO wants to see more parental focus and awareness of the dangers of teenage pregnancies. It is also seeking more advocacy from civil society organizations on the importance of the education of girls in the country. The Nigerian government says it is not relenting efforts to curb teenage pregnancies in the country. It has launched a gender adolescent school health and elderly care division in its health ministry, tasked to conduct nationwide campaigns, particularly in secondary schools, to enlighten youth on the dangers of engaging in unsafe sex in an attempt to prevent other girls having to go through a similar experience to Husseina. Tessem Akende, CGTN Jos, Nigeria.
Officials in the Democratic Republic of Congo have hailed the Belgian government for approving a plan to return artworks that were stolen from their country during the colonial period. On Tuesday, the Belgian government said that it would begin the process of returning the artworks to the DRC by setting up a committee that would investigate how they ended up in Belgium's Africa Museum. CGTN's Christo Chamringa has more from Kinshasa.
The Belgian government's announcement that it will return artwork stolen during the colonial period has been well received in the DRC. Thousands of Congolese statues, ivory masks, and musical instruments were taken from the DRC by Belgian soldiers and art collectors between 1900 and 1960. Many of them have been kept in Belgium's Africa Museum. In 2019, the DRC president demanded the return of the pieces. Congolese authorities are now preparing to store them in the country.
We intend to create new museums in all provinces in the DRC. We have 26 provinces, and all of them should have some of those art pieces. Belgium's decision to return them is very good news to us.
But some Congolese citizens are calling for a thorough probe to identify the art pieces stolen from their country.
I participated in a conference that was discussing the return of those art pieces years ago.
I posed a question about how they will identify all the stolen Congolese artworks because so many of them were taken from our country. The whole process needs to be thoroughly investigated.
The Belgian government says a scientific commission will be set up to investigate how the artworks ended up in the European country. Millions of Congolese were tortured and killed in the 1890s when the country was under the rule of the then Belgian king Leopold II. Many Congolese have been calling on the Belgian government to compensate them for the atrocities committed during the colonial rule. Last year, the current Belgian king expressed his deepest regrets to DRC President Félix Tshisekedi for the acts of violence and cruelty inflicted on Congolese citizens during colonialism. Chris Ochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
The UN resident and humanitarian coordinator for Somalia, Adam Abdulmulla, has warned that the humanitarian crisis in Somalia has been worsened by climate change, protracted conflict, and insecurity. Abdulmulla says the COVID-19 pandemic and the worst locust infestation in over a decade have also contributed to the problem. Here's CGTN's Wilkes Anyawa with the details.
Somalia is home to one of the most complex humanitarian crises. According to the United Nations resident and humanitarian coordinator for Somalia, Adam Abdulmulla, nearly half the population is now in need of life-saving assistance.
It is clear that Somalia is now on the front line of climate change. The frequency of climate-related disasters has increased rapidly. Since 1990, Somalia has experienced more than 30 climate-related hazards, including 17 droughts and 19 floods, triple the number experienced between 1970 and 1990.
About 2.8 million people in Somalia are projected to face serious food insecurity and hunger by the end of this year. And the combined impact of drought and floods as well as the locust this year, more than 500,000 people have been forced from their homes. At least 1.4 million people are receiving humanitarian assistance every month.
We are reaching out to our donors to ask for more. More Somalis will suffer if we cannot immediately scale up our activities. And hard-won progress that we have recently achieved in humanitarian responses will be lost.
The UN is looking to start long-term interventions to address the root causes of the crisis in Somalia while strengthening the country's resilience. Wilkes Anyawa, CGTN.
It's time now for us to take a short break and return your business news, including Nigeria to build a $1.2 billion railway that will link Kano and Kaduna. And Egypt's tourism revenue shrinks 67.4% to $3.1 billion in the 2020 financial year.
This has taken me completely out of my depth, but at the same time it's exciting. It's new, it's different, it's a challenge.
It's really exciting.
Over the last 48 hours, no break.
Time now for the business news. Nigeria has announced plans to begin building a $1.2 billion railway linking the northern cities of Kano and Kaduna. The country's transport minister, Rotimi Amechi, says the construction will begin this month. As CGTN's Deji Badmus now reports, Africa's leading economy is embarking on a massive railway construction to link the main towns of its 36 states with the nation's capital, Abuja.
This is the new addition to Nigeria's ambitious railway project.
the Lagos-Ibadan 156-kilometer standard gauge railway. It's a segment of the 2,733 kilometers Lagos-Kano Railway project, which will connect Nigeria's commercial capital with other parts of the country. The Kano-Kaduna Railway, which is now scheduled for construction, is also another segment of that project.
All the necessary contracts have been awarded. We've been waiting for the loan for too long now from China, and the money has not come. So we decided to fund it from the budget. We've already paid about $218 million to them, and we're about to pay them another $100 million. So that will be about $318 million. Kano-Kaduna is about $1.2 billion. The moment you pay about $380 million, you must have paid one-third of the project. So we believe that by the time we get the loan, we should, from the budget, have funded up to $600 million, between $500 and $600 million. So that should be able to take the project nearly halfway.
China has been playing a very crucial role in Nigeria's railway revitalization, providing both concessionary loans and the technical expertise to execute the projects. Chinese engineering firms are also the ones handling the Lagos-Kano Rail project.
They have been cooperating, they are playing their role, and the arrangement is government to government. The beauty of it is that our government is also trying by not waiting and providing their counterpart funding. The money we are getting from China is not that it's being given to Nigerian government. They pay for the work done by the contractor. When we certify, or the consultants say they have done this, we also look at it that they have done it. Then the Exim Bank have a consultant who also come to cross-check that what they said they have done is correct, and they pay them.
Beyond facilitating the movement of people, the Nigerian government is hoping to drive commercial activities by linking the north of the country to the south through rail. Many believe that will open up every part of the country and bring about more development. Deji Badmos, CGTN, Lagos, Nigeria.
Egypt's central bank has announced that revenue from tourism in the first 9 months of the 2020-2021 fiscal year plunged 67.4% to about $3.1 billion. Tourism, which is a main source of hard currency for Egypt, lost upwards of $7.7 billion due to the outbreak of the pandemic. From Cairo, Yasser Hakim reports on the measures the government is taking to revive that industry.
The data from the Apex Bank reflects the dire situation of the tourism industry, which has been battered by the coronavirus pandemic. In a bid to keep the tourism sector afloat, Egypt's central bank has extended its multi-billion-dollar emergency fund to the vital economic sector.
There are two initiatives. The first is funding tourism establishments to be able to pay salaries and avoid firing any employees. This initiative is led by the central bank and the president himself. The second initiative is to help hotels, companies, cruises and all tourism establishments to finance the maintenance of their facilities during the slowdown, to be able to continue operations and receive visitors when tourism recovers. This support is funded by offering loans at just 8% interest rates.
But it's not all doom and gloom for the industry. The last few months have seen a relative improvement in inbound tourism. Government figures show 3.5 million tourists visited Egypt in the first 6 months of 2021. It's the same amount of tourists that visited in the whole of the pandemic hit 2020. And hotel occupancy rates doubled to 45% in the first half of 2021, from an average 23% the year before. This is owed to the government's successful strategy to tap new markets in Eastern Europe that have no travel restrictions. Officials have also fully vaccinated workers in the main tourism resort cities.
What we've been doing in the past few months is to ensure that the health and safety and regulations that we are following in the hotel establishments ensures the safety and the health and safety of the travelers. So once this becomes known to the travelers, they would feel that they are trusting the destination, and that's why we've been receiving big numbers of tourists during the past months.
Analysts believe the third quarter could see a breakthrough for the tourism and travel industry.
In October, November and December, there will be a lot of movement in tourism from our main markets, which is the European Union, Russia and Ukraine. We expect higher numbers next winter because of the gradual overall improvement globally. The vaccines rollout worldwide, vaccinations in Egypt and the considerable drop in COVID cases in Egypt. What makes Egypt attractive in winter is that resort cities have warm weather, suitable to enjoy beaches, cultural tourism and everything related to tourism.
The government is forecasting 2021 revenue to exceed $6 billion. That's nearly double 2020, but still half the pre-pandemic level. Yes, Hakim for CGTN, Cairo.
Increasing urbanization has put a strain on space in Zimbabwean cities, limiting how much urban dwellers can grow food for themselves. However, in recent years, hydroponic farming, which involves growing plants in nutrient solutions without using soil, has emerged as a way in which urbanites can produce food in their backyards for domestic consumption and even on a commercially viable basis. CGTN's Farai Mokotuya picks up the story.
Keith Chipudla began hydroponics farming in his parents' backyard 3 years ago. He's now setting up a second farm in another Harare suburb. Proximity to his clients allowed him to scale up quickly.
For example, someone makes an order, it will not take the whole day to get there. It's just a matter of picking up the head, harvesting it, and then taking it to them within less than an hour. That's what we try to do. So our customers get our produce fresher and quicker. We don't use soil. We run away from most of the soil-borne diseases that many farmers face. Right, so we do not use things like herbicides, all that harmful stuff. So our crop is generally healthier for our consumers and our customers.
Hydroponics is seen as one way to get people, especially in cities, to grow their own food. There are 1,092 heads of lettuce here that are ready to be harvested and taken to the market. If they had been grown the conventional way, they would require a space in the ground as large as this entire greenhouse. It's this optimal use of space that makes hydroponics ideal for urban dwellers for whom space is increasingly becoming limited. It also mitigates erratic weather.
Zimbabwe is a country which is very prone to drought. So in terms of drought, people are looking at ways in which they can use water efficiently. So hydroponics is one of those in which a person is able to save water or to use the same amount of water each and every time they are farming.
However, with most components imported, high costs prohibit its uptake. Farmers like Chipudla have begun redesigning the systems using locally sourced materials to make them more affordable and are incorporating technology.
We put sensors in every greenhouse and a lot of technology there. So that means that we can actually check things like variables like temperature, water level, humidity in the greenhouse, nutrient level in our reservoirs, right? So that we can actually manipulate that on our either on a phone or tablet, because everything is controlled, it's connected to the internet.
That could make it possible for farmers to minimize labor costs, maximize yields, and achieve viability on the smallest of spaces, all from the palm of their hand. Farai Mokotuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Here's what's going to be coming up after the show break. In our continuing series on the East Africa community 20 years on, today we focus on Uganda's agricultural potential as well as the seamless transfer of goods across the region.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Kanata, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Countries in the East Africa region have benefited from the bloc's adoption of the customs union, which has aided in the seamless transfer of goods across the bloc. Despite the challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, trade in the region has remained vibrant compared to other regions on the continent. CGTN's Nick Mudima has more on this report.
Namanga, Kenya's border with Tanzania. Business is on as usual. The tough COVID-19 times have changed how operations are conducted at the border. Trucks from Tanzania in a rush to deliver different foodstuffs at the biggest wholesale market in East Africa. A long journey for most drivers as the border clearance awaits.
Clearance is very seamless. It's good that these countries come together. We hope that soon we will just be using IDs and pass to the other countries. Another good thing is that business is currently going on and everyone benefits. The traders benefit, the drivers benefit, and truck owners also get something.
It's 4 a.m. and the Marikiti market in Kenya's capital Nairobi is full of life. This is where goods from East African countries are brought for sale to traders and wholesalers. And in the cover of darkness, operations are going on as usual. Trucks from Uganda, Tanzania and other East African countries are all here. The traders on the ground bracing the early morning cold with a hot cup of coffee to keep them going. Fresh goods like pineapples, carrots, onions and other foodstuffs, all from different East African countries and within Kenya, all ready for supply. But for the traders, it has been a tedious journey and the pandemic hasn't made things any better.
At the moment, as much as things are different compared to old days, the coronavirus pandemic slowed things down. At times, goods reach the border and there is traffic jam. If there is jam, the goods will arrive late.
By the time the sun rises, the market is going through final stages of the day's activity. Most of the goods are already en route to specific retail and consumer destinations. The ease of doing business and the pillars of the East African community conspicuously manifesting in this market, unity in diversity.
I am from Uganda and I work here in Nairobi. The East African community idea has helped us a lot because we are now one. Some time back we used to have a difficult time, but these days the border is open and there's ease of doing business.
We get oranges from Tanga in Tanzania. These days things are easier to move around the border. And these perishable goods don't go stale. Compared to previous years, it was very difficult. At the moment, clearance is very fast. The vehicles come in early in the market, which keeps the supply chain consistent.
The objectives of the EAC Customs Union include furthering the liberalization of intra-regional trade in goods, promoting production efficiency in the community, enhancing domestic, cross-border and foreign investment, and promoting economic development and industrial diversification. The reduction of red tapes and embargoes in doing business among the countries is actually a welcome move by so many traders and drivers. Right now, the only issue they're facing is the issue of vaccination and, of course, COVID-19 test results turnaround, which is affecting the perishable movable goods to the market. Nick Mudimba, CGTN at the Marikiti Market, Nairobi, Kenya.
Trade experts in Uganda are urging regional leaders to harmonize agricultural standards in order to boost trade. Uganda has a surplus of agricultural produce, but exporting it to other countries remains a challenge because of differences in standards set by some of its neighbors. CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga tells us more.
A bumper harvest in Uganda. These women are sorting cereals for the market, but supply is outstripping local demand. And the Ugandan president is concerned about crops going to waste.
Uganda now is a country of surpluses. Maize, where we produce 5 million tons per year, but consume only 1 million tons within Uganda. Milk, we produce 2.6 billion liters, but consume only 800 million liters.
And more produce is still coming into the market. Figures from Uganda's Bureau of Statistics show that 70% of Ugandans are involved in agriculture. Local authorities are urging farmers to produce more so that they can improve on their incomes. There are hopes that the surplus could be exported to other countries in the region, but ensuring all standards in all countries are met is still a challenge.
Products like maize sometimes get affected, get contaminated during transportation. Even when they meet standards at farm level and at packaging level, they sometimes get contaminated during transportation or even during storage as the trucks are waiting to be cleared on the border. That's where if you have a standards infrastructure across the border points.
Uganda recently had a standoff with her neighbor Kenya over the quality of maize imports. Kenya has since put in place tough conditions such as registration of cereal importers, certificate of conformity on aflatoxin levels, and details of warehouses. President Yoweri Museveni also wants African leaders to speed up the integration of markets on the continent.
We need to deal, along with our brothers and sisters in Africa, with three issues: regional and continental integration, to unite the regional and continental markets, to support production of goods and services better. Higher purchasing power in Uganda so that Ugandans can buy more. This is the answer for the markets. Number three, and good quality products at comparative cost that can be accepted in national, regional, continental, and international markets.
Uganda has also decided to strengthen quality checks at all levels of production. But for now, to keep in business, these traders are processing the produce into long shelf life products as they wait for new markets. Hilary Isga, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
Sport news is coming up after the break, including Kenyan sprinter Ferdinand Omanyala determined to make his name at the Tokyo Olympics in Japan.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find